so take it away.
Yeah, and then feel free, anyone, to jump in with other comments, and we'll try to make sure that we're covering, so people can talk about their projects and not us. So just really quick, like Brandon said, here to really update on our progress in our community and what's going on, and then offer feedback, and maybe the group might have questions too for our Blandin cohort folks here today. So as everyone here knows, our Blandin broadband cohort is Aurora, Biwabik, Hoyt Lakes, and Town of Hoyt, managed by the East Range Joint Powers Board. And so far, we have had a few projects. We have that have been funded out of our community dollars, a portable training lab for technology through our libraries, which Phil will probably give us a little update on. We're developing a website, which it is live, but it's still under construction, but we just wanted it to be up there, and not a lot of people go to it, so we're excited to tell more people about it so they can start going to it. And then working with another member here who couldn't be here today on some public Wi-Fi accessibility in Biwabik.
Awesome. I can talk a little about the Aurora highlights when they want.
Okay, awesome. And then some business retention and expansion efforts that we're doing, and really trying to get a feel for what is some of the challenges and opportunities that our businesses have when it comes to broadband usage or not thereof. And so we've just started embarking on those. We're doing about 30, and we've got 5 done. Future plans for this group is completing our feasibility study, which will give an update on that to the group, and it's going really well, so that's been positive. That team is really fun to work with. And then we have our second round of those community broadband applications. We just had our Joint Powers Board meetings. We were able to share the attack that's coming to try to get a whole different group of people engaged in that process, from educators to nurses, and group that has not been part of the discussion so far, and see if we can't really spur up some unique ideas.
Okay, so sure. So as we started this process, we formed a steering committee. A number of the members are here today. A couple of us can't make it. It's been sort of the core group that's been meeting about 5 times over the course of the past year.
Almost every month,
every other month,
depending on what part of it is.
Plus
the feasibility group.
Yeah. There's basically a month every meeting. Sort of alternating between the various groups we have going on. But we have got the steering committee, which has members from all 4 of the Joint Powers Board communities. So that group has kind of been driving the boat and setting the deadlines for the applications for the short-term projects. Those, and also a couple of us have been attending these meetings that we've started doing with the Tower and Laurentian broadband groups to work on the joint feasibility study. So that effort has been underway for a couple months now, and we're looking to submit the applications to planning this fall. So.
And we've just been really getting our funding commitments on that, so looking to expand that steering committee with folks that are, financially part of the process. So I'm excited to get some more people into that group.
Yeah, and also add the school district is. It works well for this group to be a Blandin broadband community, because there's one school district that covers the whole area.
Carl, what's the name of that, or the number of that school district?
So let's
It's
do
We're
all like 2711.
2711, yes.
Sounds good. We'll go with that.
And just for my information, kind of nerdy about that, can anybody, maybe Mayor, you could, or what's the history of the East Range Joint Power Board? When did that first come together, those 4 communities? Is that a long-standing?
Biwabik was the last one to join, so probably the
I can
Our new
actually,
website,
I can actually
tell you
give you
exactly
the really quick overview. So it began in 1984 as a collaboration with Aurora, Hoyt Lakes, and the Town of Hoyt, and the school district at that time. And since then, the city has started participating, and the school district actually, the city of Biwabik in 2010, and the school district dropped out back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so it's really been led by the 4 communities since then.
So while the school district isn't a funding member, they're still often at these meetings.
Yeah.
So the superintendent was here today.
Yeah,
So
very
they're engaged,
participatory,
but
yeah.
just not funded.
That's good, thank goodness for this website. I feel like I learned a lot getting all the info.
Thank you for the mobile optimization.
Yeah, see?
I could actually read it when I look at it.
Yeah, instead of,
They were the first collaborative Star City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a unique model. And obviously, one that I feel alive, so it's been successful.
Yeah, there are various joint things, the police force on the East Range, the emergency services, the school district, I mean, you know, it's,
Well, I'm sure there's a great leadership story there, I'm just always curious how that stuff starts, so there was some person who had an idea, there was a need, something, that brought it together, it's interesting to speculate what that might have been.
well, maybe at our next meeting.
And
we'll
all
get
these
that
years,
story going.
all these years later, you know, in the '84, that's,
Yeah, it's interesting that in that same time frame, which wouldn't surprise me if this was a spur of that, the
Well,
Entrepreneur Fund
I
or
believe
Northeast
the
Entrepreneur
IEEE
Fund,
started it with their funding.
Apex, North Span
You know,
Group,
as a collaborative effort.
but
Yeah.
all these different groups were started kind of when the mining operations collapsed a little bit in the eighties. And so people really joined together to figure out how to keep their communities strong.
It's funded in part, like half the funding for this group comes from the IEEE, and I believe they were, had a real integral role in getting that started.
Should we have the other
Yes.
folks introduce themselves?
Yeah, do you wanna?
I'm Becky Lammy, City Administrator here in Aurora.
I'm Lindsay Luke, I'm the intern for Becky Lammy.
nice.
Roxy Jensen and Barris Vermillion Federal Credit Union.
Alright, so, some of the goals, there's really two main ones, to have these projects implemented in our community projects, and start to really generate interest and understanding and awareness of what broadband access and equitable access means to our communities. And then to complete the work of a feasibility study so we can understand what it would take to have adequate internet connection and broadband in our communities for not only our residents, but for our businesses as well. So then we're talking about 4 projects. So I'm thinking Paula wants to give us an update on the mobile training lab.
And Sue has been the primary one working on that. Timing wise, we're just getting going. Projects hit at the end of the summer reading program as well as budget time, which means there's a lot of demands on library staff, but I know Sue is getting ready to place an order on that mobile training lab. And then we'll begin working together on implementing use of that in our communities, so.
And what's all involved in that lab?
I'm not sure, I don't have a lot of those details.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, how do you see, do you and Sue have a sense of who the users of the training equipment might be? What the demand for the use of that equipment is?
Libraries do plan to use it to offer trainings on different matters of interest for the community. Certainly library resources, there are a lot of underutilized resources that are available.
Sure.
We've talked about doing finance training, computer coding, lots of different things like that. So we will be working on that.
And I think it mostly, the equipment piece is not only tablets, but also like the projector and screens, they can really take that
Right.
mobily outside of the
Mhm.
libraries and into
Thank you, yes.
senior facility or wherever.
Yes,
which
that
is
is
very
the intent, to be
unique for the
able to
area.
move around.
Yeah.
That'd be great, and, you know, certainly getting as many partners to sponsor those as possible is great. We've learned so much about, if you can go where people already are, it sure is a lot easier than putting up flyers and
Right.
trying to bring them in, so the senior facilities especially, and, just where people are gathered, it's fun to bring that kind of technology in.
And the libraries do have established partnerships with some organizations already that will be useful for adding the mobile training to the piece as well.
Do you have a goal about how many training you'll do a month, or is that a one per month kind of thing, or is that?
Yeah, again, we've been working on
Okay,
wrapping up summer, so
It
that
looks
will be
like-
the next thing.
It looks like 10 laptops and 3 iPads
Mhm.
and a Wi-Fi printer, hotspot, software and accessories.
Paula, there's a match here too, of, and where did that match come from? So, just,
Again, I'm not sure on that
Sure.
either.
it's probably library staff.
Sure.
right?
In kind,
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody Cedar has some good stuff in there and helping them get set up too.
Yeah, I think Peter's adding some of his time into.
it's nice.
Yeah. Mhm.
when we came in this morning, I went up to the library door and it says, we have Wi-Fi on the library, so it's.
And they do. We use it.
Yeah, Whitney too. Whitney's joined us, everybody, our partner Whitney Ridland from IRRR.
Can't get anybody to sit up here.
Get assigned to a committee, set up there.
So then the next project that we have going on is the public Wi-Fi one. And so,
I can do a little, I can't do the Biwabik, he's
yeah, it's really good.
doing that, but, the Arrowhead has the, internet connection, the broadband connection to the White Lakes and Aurora libraries through the service block, through their middle mile. And, we discovered recently in working with the service co-op that they have developed the technology where they can actually utilize that broadband connection to also offer Wi-Fi. So the thought was to use that existing broadband connection to enhance the Wi-Fi in the two libraries. And so the service co-op has come in and done a physical analysis of each of the library facilities, identifying wiring needs and optimal locations for access points and things like that. And so we did share that information with Peter. Poor Pete's got a lot of plates spinning in the air right now, and looking at, I think he's actually ordered some of the equipment already, so just getting all those pieces pulled together so that and I think I talked about this at the Hudband retreat, that the Wi-Fi will be pointed outside of the building, kind of fudging a little on some of the E-rate guidelines for how you're supposed to use library connections. It will point outside beyond the walls of the library, but that's as much as I can share right now.
And then he's working on having the town center have Wi-Fi access, so
We want it.
yeah, in the water.
This doesn't have a library, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he's planning on
Yeah, I know he's got,
locating stuff. I haven't talked to him about it.
he's got a plan that will work, so.
Town Central, kind of Main Street,
Yes.
kind of,
Yeah,
several
right-
blocks on Main Street.
Right next to the
Right.
grocery
Got
store and City Hall.
Yeah.
Big park there, so.
We have the large, the City Hall grocery store complex, and there's a park on the other side, and then the parking lot in between. I think that's his goal.
You know, look, you look at the numbers of how much this costs, and I'm so struck with, it's so not about the money, right?
No.
It's about people and vision and hard work and alignment and effort, because, I mean, just think for this little investment, the quality of life improvement for the town. And just because people decided to do it, because that wasn't the barrier, right, the $1,500?
No, and when we first started talking about it, it was so small, and it really grew into all of these things, so that one little project.
This might be too technical of a question, but, so when the Chisholm Library did it, that's why they had CTC come in and do a separate connection so they could do the exterior, right? Is that what you're talking about, like the E-rate or?
At the time, the service co-op was not offering where we could use the fiber connection to the building, and so that wasn't an option at the time.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking like, but this kind of evolved now, and they're kind of seeing how they can.
The irony is we've offered this up to libraries, because there's no charge for it other than the equipment, and they're actually hesitant to do it because they like the idea that their existing broadband connections are from a different provider, so it offers some redundancy. And so if the service co-op network is down for whatever reason, they have a completely different provider for their Wi-Fi, so there's actually there's some reluctance to take this free offer, but for good reasons.
Yeah.
So
whatever kind of meets the need of that library and the staff vision there.
we're talking to a couple other libraries already who probably use the service co-op network for their Wi-Fi.
Is ours connected with Arrowhead?
Not the
library?
Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi is paid for separately by the library.
Okay. So you're saying it could be available free of charge? the library?
That's what we're working on.
An additional question that may be a very stupid question, but my understanding is that all the cost for Wi-Fi is equipment costs. You can connect, like, we have Northeast Service Co-op for the City Hall port too. We just put routers on it and use Wi-Fi in that way. I didn't know that there was a reason we couldn't do that.
It was, well, the rules are different for libraries than for the city hall in
Okay,
terms
that's
of,
right.
because we get federal and state discounts, and there's guidelines as to how you can use it, and having to filter it, I'm guessing city hall's not filtering your internet access, or the library, connection has to be filtered.
I'm just curious too, I keep hearing that Frontier holds a trump card on ability to expand Wi-Fi services in a community. I have no idea if it's true or not, you know, that if, for instance, something was built off the overhead system within the community that, and I don't know, Becky, do you know anything more about this? I have heard that brought up, and this is as good a forum as any to get an answer. Is there such a thing as, I heard that you could go around it if you could say to Frontier, can you supply this kind of service? And if they say no, then there's no problem. But I'd be just curious to know whether that would be an impediment to either going off of Zito's network or, you know, the Arrowhead system.
So what you're talking about, they'd have no power to stop you from using another provider to deliver a Wi-Fi service?
Well, the perception was that they could, and the question is that true or not?
It's not true.
Not true. All right. Well,
So they could be, so if your town wanted to encourage, we'll just say Zito to come in and build a brand new network in place, if your city is considered served under the state broadband grant program, that means you'd have 100 megabits down and 20 megabits up as a minimum level of service. Or do you guys have MediaCom as a cable company?
Yes, they're a cable company, whether
Yeah.
they provide the requisite speeds and things.
And so I bet MediaCom would claim that they do. And so then that would, the state would not be able to give you a grant for, if you're, and even if you have 25 down and 3 up, you're considered underserved. And so then you can still get a grant, but you're a lower priority than people who are considered unserved. But in terms of federal regulations, yeah, that kind of guaranteed monopoly kind of went out the window in '96.
Okay, so
It only applies to
building
state.
off the Arrowhead system then is a feasible option.
You can build off the service co-op network. The library connection has to be for libraries because of the funding that we get to provide that. That's why City Hall has a separate connection from the library through the service co-op.
Okay.
And I know that was a problem for the township as well, because they were putting the fiber here in the building, but they couldn't utilize the library connection. And it was frustrating a lot of communities where they wanted to use the library to run city operations, and we're prohibited from that.
Sorry to get us off track a
No.
little bit.
No, not at all, and I just had just a quick follow-up question on the library, so these 2 libraries listed here, does that mean that there previously had not been any Wi-Fi at these
No,
libraries?
you do have Wi-Fi now.
We do have Wi-Fi, it's been paid for separately by the libraries. And so this would be using the service co-op and saving the cost of paying for that monthly.
Got it.
And enhancing it.
It's
And
also-
enhancing it.
Yeah.
More
Yes.
robust.
That was really the goal.
So it's a
Are you
win-win.
using, who do you use now, MediaCom? or-
Frontier currently.
Okay. I know MediaCom will ostensibly provide an internet connection to a library, but I don't know how robust they are. That's what you're getting a router off of.
We had MediaCom in here when the sheriff's office was in the building, and the only thing it did do was not work.
Reliably didn't work, right? No, that's good.
Another satisfied customer.
So that's why, when it came time for your,
Yeah.
the service cooperative, they switched it over to get it to work.
Right, but now the township has Frontier,
Yeah.
you know, in our offices, and that's what we have out at the Loon Lake Community Center too, is Frontier for Wi-Fi.
And
It'd
at
be
the
really
fire
nice
hall
to
and the,
get, broadband out
the
there in the
garage.
Palo community and
What would
something.
that take? So, cause I was
it's
gonna,
right in front of the building right now. You know, it went out there late connections, ran the lines,
Yeah.
and they run right past every place, but they did not hook very many people up before they went belly up.
That could bring up our favorite, the Zito
Yeah.
company that has taken over Lake Connections assets and running it, and it's interesting. It's always good to share the sort of stories that can motivate us to do more education. Okay, so at our recent council meeting, 2 comments came up. One, we don't have to worry anymore about broadband expansion or anything because Zito's here to serve us. Because someone saw something like that on Facebook. Well, I went to Facebook and I sent a text to the company saying, hey, if you're offering services, sign me up, you know, kind of thing, and they haven't heard anything back. The other one was that we really are putting our eggs in the wrong basket, that again, it should be 5G that we're concentrating on, and I believe the source of that was probably from some of the provider companies and so on. And Bill, your group and everybody has educated us pretty well the distinctions in more sparsely populated areas of 5G versus that. But and Zito, we've reached out to them from the city. We sent them a glad to have you on board type thing. We haven't seen any robust response. I don't know if anyone else has, but yeah, they have fiber optic lines all over the place up here that could be providing the backbone for the network. So that's discouraging, and I know Roxy sitting back there from the credit union's standpoint would greatly benefit from even being able to connect to the lines that I think are right along the right of way in front of the building probably.
I think they ran into our building already, but we couldn't connect.
Yeah, I couldn't connect, so.
Yeah, I think one thing that we get really excited about with the feasibility study is the case for demand that we will have and the fiber that already exists that could be built upon. You know, we're in a unique situation because that, and to be able to tell that story in a succinct way is really gonna get Zito and or others in interest.
No, yeah, hopefully, it should be a good business incentive, right? So,
Should be, yeah.
well, before we move off the community Wi-Fi thing, I just wanted to ask one more question. In my experience, you know, this is the kind of project with a little bit of effort and a little bit of money that makes a big difference to people. You know, and I'm just wondering, you've got a nice robust list of projects, and I know you're looking at another round. Do you guys anticipate that there'll be more Wi-Fi projects like this? When you think about your 4 communities, are there ones that you haven't done yet that you would still like to do Wi-Fi enable like this? Just curious.
One we talked about a little bit is Loon Lake, the community center that gets used a lot. We have a lot.
There is Wi-Fi out at that, right?
Right.
But it's
You
off
could use a
of,
boost.
Frontier,
could use a
so
boost,
it's
yeah.
very limited, you know.
Sure.
Does the arena have Wi-Fi?
Yes,
Yeah.
not outside of it, but
Sure.
inside.
Yeah.
But the Hoyt Lakes campground is one place I've thought of because
Yeah.
people go out there. I mean, you're out there to enjoy nature and relax, but people still work they stay out there for a week or two. We have a lot of seasonal sites. Like you still want access to your work and your email, and I know people do a lot of, like my nephews do these weird little podcasts or Snapchat things about fishing, and they post pictures and they have contests and you can win stuff. Well, when they're out in the middle of the lake, they can't post all the pictures of the fish they're catching. So, I mean, there's a need to have it out there even though you're trying to relax. They still want Wi-Fi access. So I think that would be an important
Good, well, I'm glad you're
location
thinking
too.
about things like that, because this is the time to get it done.
Well, I can think I wouldn't say the city of Aurora has any robust plan or program, but we've talked about things like a hotspot in a pocket park in the center of town there, and I think that could easily be expanded to maybe at least providing Wi-Fi in the downtown area that would boost, sort of businesses and a few adjacent sort of facilities like that, but
What about Pine Grove Park, Doug? Do you guys have any Wi-Fi out at Pine Grove?
no, I don't think so.
See, I mean, I know it's a recreation spot, but
there's a lot of events that go on there. People might wanna broadcast, go live on Facebook and broadcast different
amen, that
events
would be-
and, you know,
We would get more patronage into the park, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're thinking like that, cause the other cool thing is that you're gonna have all this learned experience with Peter's efforts and be able to learn from that, and so the next one to do will be easier.
I think the goal would be the new athletic facility at the school.
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great for there too.
Good.
Awesome, so the third one we have so far is the website. And so a big piece of this was really centralizing community information, partially even who are we, not only internally to our community, but even to our very near outside friends and family. And then really a place to share what's going on, not only in the broadband process, but as the East Range Joint Powers and what's kind of, what are the cool things that are happening in our communities. There's not really one place for that. And so that there are kind of these two goals to really inform and educate around East Range and broadband and what's going on, but also bring our community to a place where they know what's happening in these four communities. And so that it is live. I'd say is probably, I think I said 70% done this morning. And so we have yet to then go and do some training with our city staff to figure out what's the best process for kind of submitting events and trying to really make that a really easy process so that it could be going on past, if Sherry moves to Hollywood, we can have someone else that helps us.
Is that a prospect?
I'm not opposed.
I'm really trying to.
Is that next to Palo?
Yeah. Trying to make it so that it's a really easy, feasible process for any new person to come in and learn as well. And so website technology can be overwhelming, and we want it to be not overwhelming so that it continues on.
Is this a new domain name?
It is not. So domain name already existed, but it was not highly utilized.
Okay.
It was started in the last 2 years. Like a year.
And what is it?
So it's fairly new. It's just erjpd.com.
Okay.
So we could have other ones that go there too, but we've just kept it that. That's what a lot of people know the group as locally, not so much, outside of the area. But
yeah.
Peter had already got it, so we were able to work and not have to spend those costs. And then it was just broadband before, so that's where we were at least. A landing page for when our meetings were and able to update people just on broadband process, and now that's where the page is on.
Cool.
So we know that, and I'm looking at Ann, because she knows best of all about this, how challenging this can be. This is a big lift. To get aligned calendars and shared, everybody agree, the protocol.
What can go in and what can't.
So talk a little bit more about the calendar component and trying to have one place where all the activities are. What's your approach to that, and how's that piece going?
Yeah, well, I would say we don't have a formalized policy yet, but we did have some long discussions about this.
Yeah, and putting together a formalized
and there will be a policy, and we're gonna, the events in the event calendar will be the joint powers board related or economic development related or community related, so it's not just gonna be any stray little events.
Birthday parties.
Kind of community-wide invited.
Yeah.
Sure.
The
So only Carl's birthday.
Yeah. Like in the summer, each of our communities and throughout the seasons have really interesting events that happen for the whole community. That would be a great, that nothing really exists like that now. They're posting it on other places that are not necessarily here in the community. So coming up with that policy and then really trying to make that process really simple. So you can, submit it via email or a Word document or whatever. And
So how are you thinking about the overlap with the school district? Because they've probably got tons of calendars, right?
So yeah, like their sports calendar, and then just maybe they don't really have a calendar besides their sports calendar.
Okay.
And the school calendar of what days school's in session.
Sure.
Those are really the only two calendars you can access on the school.
Like they're linked. They'll be linked on the website, kind of some of those big partners like Iron Tourism, the school district.
But they're,
Trying not to do
I'm personally aware of a number of situations, well, not a great number, but some instances of tripping over each other,
Right.
the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing in terms of the scheduled events, and then you, in a small community, you have a limited
number of people you can draw into an event, and, yeah, that's been awkward, so I think that'll be a real great tool.
Is there any mechanism now for taking stuff that you gather here and getting it to the Iron Range Tourism Board or to other regional calendars?
Oh, calendar wise,
Yeah,
not yet.
so that somebody wants their event really publicized,
Yeah,
so they
the
don't
way
have to
that
do it
it's-
multiple places.
The way that it's built, they could pull an RSS feed off of it, so we'd have to talk to Beth and see if that's
Okay.
possible, you know, it's just like a regular calendar plugin, so it's really
Right.
simple. So it's possible.
Are the, any of the, meetings of the ERJB, I'm trying to learn this
Yeah.
acronym,
He's trying
ERJB
to
TV, streamed or recorded? Is there?
They aren't right
These
now.
aren't.
No.
But could this be, are you thinking that this might be a place where those meeting, I mean, is there a separate webpage for meeting notices? You guys must be subject to the open meeting law and all that meeting notice thing, right? Is this gonna be a place for the East Range Board to memorialize its minutes and stuff like that? Or
Yeah,
is it-
we could have a tab for the meeting minutes that I can
Yeah, kind of
upload
build
the
the space in for
minutes.
that
and-
in hopes that it would be. Because right now that's not, you know, like if you go to the different cities' websites, it links to this, or it just says share our contact information. And so my hope would be that is, you know, it'll be in the calendar, so people see when all the meetings are. They're always the same month, but that's not really out there very easily to find. And there is space to have our minutes and whatever would be public information.
It'd be interesting to equip, if we had the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi interconnections and things for a streaming capability, or at least a video archive.
Or just a video archive, yeah.
Yeah, but,
And we had talked about that at some point, but, well, just city council meetings, which some of which are already streamed, but.
Yeah, so we link all
Your
the cities instead of
you have some video.
regurgitating.
Ours were taped by,
Yeah.
And then are they archived on a city site then, Jim, or?
the city site links to the, I can't think of
Community.
the one in Virginia.
Community television.
Oh.
The
Yeah,
community
Miss-
access.
Yeah, what is that called?
Yeah, so, they offer them, and so you can link to them from our website. I think they're actually hosted at
Wasabi Community TV or something,
Yeah,
whatever it's called, yeah.
Whatever that group
Might
is.
Yeah.
Channel 2, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 11, 13.
Makes me
whatever.
think that'd be a good link to add, like we have the 4 communities, but then it could just go right, we could have one that goes right to the site, so a CD won't even,
If someone had,
direct to that instead of 3.
high-speed broadband to be able to
Yeah.
view things.
That's a whole nother grant to have this room set up to record, you know, the meetings
There we go,
and.
yeah. Could be a nice pilot, yeah.
But your council meets in here, and
Yeah.
those meetings are recorded.
Well, the official meeting on the first of the month, and then we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
special meetings.
Same with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it would be good to be more transparent through using that and showing people another avenue by which they can get
If you don't have your
information.
own equipment, they bring that in,
Right.
same as they do for the
Okay.
Just to access that information.
Well, this is really good conversation, because part of what we hope to do today is was think about what's happening, so and what still is possible, so, I'm glad to encourage you to think about other ways to take advantage of all this good infrastructure work you're doing.
All right, and then the fourth final project that we funded in the first round was a series of business retention and expansion visits. It's an attempt to visit 30 businesses across the 4 East Range Joint Powers communities, and doing some work that the North Band historically has already done in assessing of business needs and the perception of the community and what should be improved. But what we did beyond that is we built out a whole section of questions with some help from Bill, who provided us some examples, built out a survey for the questions on broadband, and so we're in the process of visiting all those businesses to understand what their situations are. We've completed 5 in the past month, and Amanda and I are working on these, and then collect that information and compile it at the end, and we should be able to help build a stronger case and understanding of where we are once we're done. So,
And putting all that information into our feasibility study or whoever we hired.
doing some of this stuff up front.
Those questions working out then?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking to them kind of like 3 big areas around their business and like challenges, opportunities in general, suppliers, etc. Their interest in being in this community. conversation. And all that information is also being submitted into the GROW program at a statewide level. And that's the first time in a long time that these types of visits from our area have had input into that program, which from my experience can be really helpful when you're talking about lobbying for what our communities really need at a state level. Sometimes we can impact what the chamber is lobbying about. But if we don't put it in there, then we can't.
Has our chamber, I mean, I'm thinking like Roxy, your situation and everything else, is there an avenue? I don't know if you've already interviewed the credit union or not, or whether we could encourage people to come forward and volunteer from the Chamber of Commerce. Is that
to be one of our VRA visits?
Yeah.
We have the 30 businesses identified. The 4 communities helped us identify those.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Is the credit union on the list?
yes.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Good. Good.
And then I'd also say we could also just send the survey.
We could, yeah, because
So
we could send it to more
it's
people.
built as a Google form, so it can just be shared, and if we want more people to take a broadband survey, we can easily send that.
And I was curious to say, I'm just, if you could say a little about how you did identify those 30 businesses.
We coordinated with the city administrators and mayors in each city,
Yeah.
so we had built a list of who are, starting with leading employers and major businesses, but also who do you think may be having issues with, you heard from, there's been ownership changes, anything significant in recent years, so we benefit from some outreach. So it's a wide variety, so we certainly have some major institutional ones, but also some small shops on Main Street, and so it's a really good cross-section.
So Amanda, any surprises yet? Have you conducted a couple of these interviews?
Yeah, I've gone to all of them so far. We've done most of the larger employers, so we've gone to Polymet and Essentia and
It's always
So
easier
power,
to schedule.
yeah, and so it's just really interesting to see, just like I'm relatively new at this, so it's interesting to just hear from all the different employers about what's going on in their community, and so I like to be here. I'm excited to keep going.
Yeah, and it's a fun process, because I think often when businesses are contacted, hey, we want to come visit you,
You're like,
these contractors
right.
down, who are you, why are you doing this? But it's always a process where you slowly get them open up, and by the end they're telling you more than you ever wanted to know about their business.
And it's been really interesting conversations around broadband.
Yeah.
What, even the first one, I only went to the first one with Polymet, and just what are they doing now? What do they know they need to have? And the vast difference between those two, and that they've got 6 different ways of which they might get to that, and they were like, we want to be on this team.
Yeah.
So I think the more conversations we have, the more people are going to come out of the woodwork being like, we want to be on your team. But I really like that idea of working with even our chambers to send out that, even if it's just the broadband section of the Google form, and to our chamber or business kind of, the Biwabik group too, and anyone who we're not able to meet with the person that wants to give us information, we will take it. Just more good info for the feasibility study.
And we should add that the Biwabik, or White Lakes Chamber is a contributor to feasibility studies.
They are.
Is the feasibility, a little off topic about this, but is there a feasibility study doing any residential surveying about this?
We believe absolutely yes, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, and I'm looking over at Bill, so
required.
One of our longtime colleagues, Nancy Hoffman, who's done ERA, you guys know her, HR, and she did, they did a residential survey as part of their feasibility study. And the figures that came back from that about if residents had broadband, the percentage that would open or support a home-based business or their entrepreneurial activity was so compelling. And they've used those numbers really effectively ever since, because it gets the attention of leadership of the community. Wow, if I had a good broadband commission, I'd be running, it's like a really high percentage of people, so I'm glad you're thinking
we are,
right.
yeah. We were just talking about making sure we really wanted to have a residential piece to our feasibility study survey piece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The team is on that one.
And it's gonna start moving more visibly soon, so,
Any surprises, Amanda, when you ask people why they're here, why they like to be here? What do the businesses say?
Everyone really likes living in a small town, likes riding their, being able to ride an ATV on the road. So it's
just different from someone who's lived in larger areas for most of my life.
And I'd say that
Yeah.
it's definitely a strength of communities here, in
Yeah,
the sense that,
definitely.
even, we've done this in other small towns too, and it's not always there, so. It's pretty to see, but, yeah.
Passion.
I bet the Chamber of Commerce's are interested in what you hear in the results of
Yeah.
what the businesses are saying.
And we will have kind of a written report out and kind of recommendations for our communities based on what we hear too, not just related to broadband, but other pieces of that conversation.
One of the interesting educational tools that I've had to employ, that we have a education that one's noticed that a much older population. And so it came up in one of our meetings or something saying, when the children and grandchildren come to visit for the holidays and they're there for 3-4 days, at the end of it, do the kids, the grandkids want to come back or not, because of the digital world? And that gets me on what so many comments I've heard are, why do I need high-speed broadband?
Yes.
And in that age group, aside from telemedicine,
Yeah.
I've at least found difficulty convincing them. I don't know what other people's experiences are. There's a generational gap, on that, and some way to make them realize beyond their own world how other people are using it and things. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw it anecdotally that in an older community is a powerful tool. So.
One of the things that I note is we have auditors that come in, they're friendly, feds, and then we have third-party auditors. They can't connect in our building. So they're wanting to take information out of our building, which we don't allow because of privacy and breaches and all that. And that's been a huge challenge for us. And then there's products and services that we want to offer, and we can't because people can use them if we have them. And they're things that are common in Minneapolis or Duluth.
We've certainly seen that in Mora, one of the guys that, the business sector, private sector business leaders that really shook the tree to get this going was a banker. Jelson Doyle was his name, Jelson Doyle?
Yep.
Same deal. He wanted to use normal range of banking services.
Yeah.
But his customers could not, and he didn't let it go, and he's just played a leadership. They're still don't have it figured out, but I was first acquainted to that challenge from Jelson.
And it costs us more money too because they're here longer, because they're going through and doing notes and typing and transcribing. It's just a nightmare.
So Bill, what's the solution for the credit union? Is that getting the Lake Country, that's a Lake County fiber that's running into your building to get that turned on? Is that?
We have 3 locations. So we're in Tower, Embarrass, and Aurora. And we're in-house, which means we operate our own computer system. And so the information we send to Tower only goes as fast as what we have, and it's sometimes not fast enough. So there's delays for them. Pulling up an account might take them 5 seconds, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. And then getting that information back into our system, it's a challenge. It is. And we're looking for the most possible speed we can get so that we don't have to do this again. No.
And so now, the Zito network now is where, that goes. I think they're in Embarrass. But,
they are.
And so whether they're the right provider or CTC using the Northeast Service Co-op network, both of those are options, or some even combination of those. I think the CTC is now, I won't say their preferred partner, but they seem to be the most aggressive partner with the service co-op, where they could look and they might be a block away, or maybe they're 2 blocks away, but not too far. I don't know if the service co-op goes to Embarrass. I'd have to look at their map.
ironically, one business, Amtech, who happened to be the president of that chamber, his property serviced by lake connections, high speed. I don't know the experience recently under changes of management, but out of a whole community, it boggles my mind. You know, one customer. Yeah.
And the other fear right now is what's Frontier gonna do? They have no techs around here anymore. I think last I heard they lost 15 employees.
Yeah.
So, you know, are they stable? I know we don't get the service we used to.
I know a girl who works from home for Blue Cross, and she's just a couple miles out of Hoyt Lakes, but her internet is so bad that she called a tech to come fix it, and it was going to be like 8 or 9 days. So she had to go drive to the Virginia office to work every day instead of working from home because they couldn't get to her. It was like a week out. Yeah, so it is
the same thing
a
happened
problem.
with the golf course too.
Yeah, he had some problem for a couple days. He was down.
Well, he couldn't get them to come off the service.
Yeah,
from
it's
here. So then he went to that thing across the road from the golf course, that tower there, and he got wireless in instead. You know, he said it's been working great. So.
yeah, it's a problem.
All of a sudden, he couldn't prosecute credit cards or anything on the system to Frontier, and they wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Can I just make one comment about Frontier, because I've been digging in a little bit, because the agency's accepted community infrastructure projects for broadband. And there's an application for Frontier to serve an area around Ely. But in working with the state broadband office, I learned this week, and I was kind of aware of this, that Frontier got $165 million to serve 46,000 locations in Minnesota over 6 years. And that really equates to about $3,500 per location that Frontier should potentially be able to invest. You know,
You
that's
mean per location?
per household, per location.
Oh,
tax.
dollars.
Basically, or
Yeah.
per connection and
Yeah.
everything. And they just got that for this next 6 years.
Well, no, it's been
Cap
ongoing,
two.
this is the CAF two
Cap two
funding, but
funding.
I just came across the numbers to back that up this week, and I'm somewhat,
So you're saying that
How is that being
3,500 per could be used to connect to a backbone?
or enhance, or improve,
CTC.
right?
Or there hasn't
We're
been any
not seeing
indication of
that.
that.
I'm not seeing that in the service area,
Or where is it happening? Kind of
Yeah.
situation, right?
so, you know, just to provide some data for these questions that we're all kind of wondering, right?
Wow.
The background when we have the conversation.
Yes, so if you ever want that information, I'm happy to share it.
By the way, Greg Allen, our superintendent of schools, just arrived.
Welcome.
Perfect timing.
Okay. Any final questions on the projects before we move on to the other things we have going on?
More to come.
Okay, so the next slide we have here is on PCs for people. As the steering committee came together to discuss how we want to offer these 50 computers that we received, first offered computers to the libraries, and they took 7, so we have 4 in one and 3 in the other, and those will be set up and working soon. So those have already been delivered, but the other 43 we decided to put out an application, for families in the school district for low income to see if they want to use them, and it was very successful. We got 72 applications for those 43 computers, and our hope is that we can use kind of the next round for grant funding to supply the other 29, so that we can meet the gap and give one to everyone.
Excited to just be able to hopefully do that for everyone that applies.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so, there was, when we budgeted our program for our 4 communities, we have the tourism board as one of our communities, and they decided not to distribute. And so there are extra computers to be distributed in the Iron Range that wouldn't have to take dollars. And so we just need to, there's no real formal, we haven't talked too much about how to do that, but if you've got demand lined up, that would seem like it would be good place to use a bunch of those.
We love that. We wanna do it for everyone.
And over the next couple days, we could talk to the other communities and see what the demand is, you know, in the Laurentian and in Tower. And maybe we can, whether we can give you all of those or some of them, we'll have to look for an equitable distribution, but, so there definitely, I mean, your share of that would be 13 or 14,
You got
15.
30, about a gap of
16, I
about 30.
guess.
Yeah. And our committee, when we met as our steering committee, we knew that we wanted to utilize, you know, do a little mini application for whatever that gap was either way. So our goal was to, if we only had 12 apply, or if we had 100 apply, we were hoping to provide that to every family that applies.
That's exciting.
Were the applications targeted to the school district?
The school district worked with us just and put out the applications to everyone on free and reduced lunch.
So thanks to the school district staff for managing that for us.
It's not a small project for them.
And I think it's safe to say that if PCs for People comes up and you're ready for the computers, I mean, you don't have to just do it and just submit it whenever you next submit projects to us. But yeah.
Right, yeah, so that doesn't make sense.
Super
easy.
Yeah, we're working to try to get a date together.
Yeah.
It's just starting to come together right now, so.
But if the PCs for People thing happens sooner, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you surveyed the families, did you give them a sense at all about what the timeline was for the distribution?
I think we said fall, our hope is fall.
Yeah, it just said to be determined in the fall. We just received all the applications back. I think the deadline was like August 10th.
Okay.
So they were compiling all those letters, and then we're gonna schedule a date, hopefully coming up here in maybe October.
Nice. Well, then that's a real opportunity to provide training to those 70 families. They've never had a computer, you know, they can come and, you know, make use of your mobile lab there, and if you can tie those things together, that's really fun.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Thanks, Bill. Have you gotten had any conversation about training or other support for the recipients?
We have, Betsy is really interested because of what, Olavanti has done in some of the other communities, and so we were talking about what that could look like with the training lab, and so my hope is that will come to fruition in our area as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's a nice little home-based business training thing for her as well, is that here's 70 people who, you know, whether they cut wood, right, and they got a bunch of wood in their backyard that they could turn into cash, or whether it's something else.
And we didn't require, because I think it'd be silly to, in the situation we're in, that they have to have internet. So these families may or may not have internet, but it comes, obviously everyone here knows that it comes with programming already on the computer, so the kids could at least still be using it for school or learning.
And now with
technology.
Checkouts locally.
Yeah.
And I'm on the board of PCs for People, I'll make that clear, but the PCs for People also, if people can get a Sprint cellular service, they can get it for $13 a month from PCs for People for unlimited data.
Does that work up here?
In some places, depending on where you are, right? I mean, Sprint is probably one of the weaker.
I have it in struggles on. Struggles out here, but.
Does that include a hotspot too, then, that $13?
Yeah. It's a dongle on the device that plugs right into the computer.
Be a good little piece of information to have with us either that day or prior to get out to those families. I can maybe work with you, Bill, on that.
Yeah, that's
even if 5 people are able to use it, there's 5 more people that can't.
Are they able to test it before they enroll in it?
Well, I guess I would have Carl drive around.
Yeah, see where they can get service and where they can't. And maybe a Sprint rep can come with a map, or maybe we can get a map of where they have service
because
and something to show.
Verizon at one point, and I had it for 3 days, and I
couldn't get service.
use it anywhere. So
if they had data with unlimited data with AT&T, Verizon to a hotspot is probably same price. Probably at $13 or $15.
Superintendent, when you got 72 respondents here, did that surprise you either way? Fewer, more than expected?
That was more. It's really hard to
do you feel like, do you have a sense, are there more than this?
I don't know if that breaks into families, but that's 400 kids, that's probably 200 or 300 families. But a lot of them probably have some things.
Sure.
Well, this is a great start, and once the word spreads, hey, you know, Joey got a free computer, then we can buy him right along.
And this might do a little PR once, you know, once the libraries are set up and ahead of the distribution, so
Mhm.
get a little attention here.
Good. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And we're mystified sometimes.
Yeah,
We
it
say,
was
oh,
more
I
than I
tried to
thought.
give those away and we couldn't. We go,
Right.
who did you ask? Or whatever, you know, but it, and here, so if this is, you know, if there is, you know, you know, if you figure there's 200 to 300 families that would qualify, then there's, you know, we're at a third or 40% that have signed up for it. So that's a great, I think that's a great turnout. I think you're right there. So it's way to go.
How's the distribution gonna work?
Generally, they have an event, and not like during school and not at the school, but maybe at the community center where they come and pick them up. So that's what we're working on now, is trying to figure out what day that would be. And then if like they can't be there, we house them somewhere so they can pick them up.
Cause you identify the population if you have an event.
Right, exactly,
Yeah, so we don't wanna do that at school.
Right, so we don't want it to be,
Well, it could be at the school, they just come and pick it up.
Sure.
yeah,
But
not during, yeah.
out necessarily.
So a lot of times they've done them on the weekends or at a community center, so.
Yeah, where they have a PC for people rep there who
Yeah.
explains, here's what's loaded on your computer, here's how to use it, here's who you call if you have a problem with it, you know, they call it PCs for people rep.
Yeah, like if they turned it on and the second day it quit, they call PCs, they'll come and replace it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they'll drop extra computers here.
yeah, just in case, yeah,
And so like 3 to 4 extra ones, and then they,
something weird happens.
yeah. So they do look for someone to kind of staff that,
Mhm.
because they don't come back to Aurora to exchange one.
yeah.
So whether that was here at the city hall or at the library, where somebody would be able to just receive that computer and give them a new one.
We can figure it out between our team.
Yeah. And so the distribution events are nice. They can distribute 70 computers in an hour, hour and a half, including, they would kind of break people into groups in half an hour. So they come in, they give them a little orientation, little virus, education, and here's how to set it up, you know, the blue plug goes in the blue hole kind of thing. And then people pick it up. You know, a lot of times if it's decent weather, they'll just leave them right on the truck and they'll just distribute them right off the truck.
Is there any technical support that goes with helping people as they encounter their first problems? You know, I mean, that's the.
You know, there's a push to have somebody local kind of be that person. And so just to receive the phone calls again, and in some cases, it's been the library, like in Rock County, they've done that, and generally the computers work very well, but of course there are issues, and so, well, most people, their first call for help is gonna be to their neighbor, their buddy, or something.
Their kid, they're gonna.
And then again, but to have that, sometimes it's a local computer sales and service company that would take on that thing, just as a demonstration of their own capacity, to say, look, we're here in town, if you wanna buy more software, buy a better something or other, or when that computer dies in 2 years or whatever, just as a resource.
We have that Rogers Online in town, he might be a good resource, cause he could get more
But
business.
he's not here anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't have his office, but he still does computer stuff,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Right.
So I mean, just to call and be like, hey, this isn't working, or, you know, maybe he'd be a good
Good ask.
resource to give people a little help.
We've utilized him.
Yeah, I still do too, and I have computer problems we can't figure out, we just call him and he comes over and fixes it for you.
Yeah.
Great.
So still figuring it all out, but now we have the info so we can start.
Let us know when that's gonna be, so.
Yeah,
Show up and.
Take pictures, no, or careful about taking pictures, but
some people are just so happy to have one, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah, and we can do pictures of the library, for sure.
big stack of them.
Yeah.
Big stack of computers.
So the last thing on here before we get to the end, is just our feasibility study groups. We've talked about that in a variety of ways. We're meeting about monthly. We've had 3 or 4 meetings now. Really focused on helping our team out a lot. And our teams are very different from Laurentian to Tower to East Range. And so there's varying capacity in our teams. Whitney and Betsy have been extremely helpful to that group. And so now we're at the point where we're all kind of getting out there and meeting with our communities and businesses and trying to raise those dollars, where we've raised about 45,000.
And what's your target amount?
Up to 75. Yeah, but really, we know we wanna hit 50, so we have at least 100, so we're gonna be there.
Yep.
And then, but we were talking about this with our, at our board meeting just a little bit ago, we don't wanna not include people in that ask, because maybe they wanna be at that table and participate, even if it's a smaller town or a business. And so we're still gonna do the big ask, even if we rate, you know, we're really where we feel like we have to be to have a decent budget for our feasibility study and everything, and if we end up with more committed, that's okay. But we really wanna make sure that the people who wanna be at the table have been invited.
Yeah, and I guess to explain East Range's fundraising today, so we've got 10,000 from the Joint Powers Board itself, we've got 1,000 committed from Aurora, White Lakes, and Biwabik. We're going to the Town of White's meeting next week, make the same ask. 2,500 from the White Lakes Chamber. And then we also have, then we also have a couple private businesses that have chipped in. That's sort of going into the pot, not
for one community.
designated one community, but Minnesota Power has 5,000 in, so.
Yeah, and because
like that.
part of that approach is, as a group, the 3 communities don't have equal ability to raise those dollars, and so we're coordinating our applications, so when we have our budget matches, we all have about the same amount that we're asking for, because we're really trying to raise those dollars together to make sure that the geographic territory can really be represented.
Oh, good.
Are you applying together or separately?
Separate.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Does that?
So would you advise?
Yeah, how do you?
Yeah, I know we can apply together. We've been very strategic about making sure we're doing our 3 applications correctly.
Oh, wait, yeah, I mean, if that's the way you wanna do it, that's fine.
But if, I guess if the single one's an
You
option.
know,
Yeah, be easier.
So the city of Chisholm
Tell us
applied on
more.
behalf
Yeah.
of all 3 communities for the Central Range one.
Okay.
So I mean, if you, it seems like it would be easier to do 1 grant.
It'd be way easier.
Yeah, you just pick a fiscal agent and then you just.
Well,
Yeah, we have one.
We have a fiscal agent, City of
Yeah.
Virginia is our fiscal agent,
They
but
could just-
we could help
Yeah.
between
You
us
could
and
just write it
Melissa,
down.
write it
Yeah.
together as one
Yeah.
for the 3.
I mean, that's what they did,
No doubt.
that's what they did for Central Range.
That would make our tower friends very happy.
They'd be so happy.
They would, I could just see them right now, they would be so relieved not to have to try to write that
Our
grant.
next meeting
It's
is
just
just
2
like we're
ladies
writing them
working on it.
together, so
Yeah.
this would be a very exciting update for our group. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna.
All right.
Yay.
I don't want it.
Yes.
I love it today.
Yeah.
Strut for stuff.
We're gonna get a grants assistant, she'll be just thrilled not to have to do 3.
3 identical
Yeah.
with different budget.
Right.
Mhm.
Alright,
Yeah.
that's great. They'll be very happy.
Good to know, Mary.
Because we can,
We
got
get to
the.
probably
so
deliver
happy.
this information 3 times in the next 2 days.
I know.
I think so many people. Yeah. Because we had, like, they were basically, we're gonna draft ours and we'll bring that and we'll help, and so this will be great. So
Yeah.
really, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
I'll add that we do have some of our outreach plan in some of the townships surrounding the 4 East Range Joint Powers communities that are not in the Joint Powers Board, but they're in the school district. So
Sure.
so
Making
there's
sure
still
we're
this
getting
range.
to all of them. Yeah.
Making sure we're covering all the townships between here and Virginia and Tower and everyone's in.
Kind of the full geographic area, even though they may not sit at our table right now.
And are all your match suppliers giving their money to, you might wanna make sure that the match people are giving the money then to the right.
Yeah, well, the city of Virginia is the fiscal agent.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, and so it doesn't have to, the way we're doing it, they don't have to give her the money, she will be invoicing them as costs occur.
Alright,
Some have given their dollars, and so then we will.
so the money was already kinda centralized.
Yep.
Alright, yeah, it's just.
Perfect.
So Betsy and Whitney on your team have been down this road before, they have experience doing this, is that informing your thoughts about your, partner, the consultant that you might work with, where's where you at in your thinking on that?
Where we're at, I would say, is trying to now in the next 2 meetings, we kind of put it on our plates, Whitney's helping us, kind of what is that timeline and what do we really wanna make sure that we are asking for in that RFP? And the pieces that we know have worked really well in other communities and kind of honing in on that, making sure we're not missing the residential piece and the demand piece of being able to show that.
My recommendation has been to really look at it in 2 phases and really a robust survey that's mapped with information that the providers want. And for when we get down that road, if, you know, take that next step for engineering, that survey information seems to be what's most valuable in these grant applications and in actually getting an infrastructure project going. So, I mean, still looking at doing both pieces, but doing a real robust mapping survey piece on the front end as part of that. So any thoughts from you guys, you know?
And we know that there's a lot in the ground, we don't know where all that is, and so that's part of that engineering
Existing
piece too.
conditions, yeah, identification. But, you know, maybe not going into the engineering as quickly or, you know, finding the right partner to do the engineering piece. So we'll see if it gets broken down into 2 pieces or how that actually
It's one
comes
RFP
together.
Cause do you think some of that engineering is kinda wasted?
Yeah, I think the high level is important, to some degree, but I just watching just the momentum and you're working on a feasibility study, there's 3 providers fighting over Cherry Township right now. I mean.
Never enough market for one, but there's always more for 2.
If we have all
They
of that
all like
phase
to
one,
do their own engineering, so if there would be a way to, you know, get that survey work, get that interest, engage with the providers a little bit, and then,
They can do
you
that
know,
work.
communities could dedicate their funding to say, hey, provider, you're kinda interested, wanna do your detailed engineering with your engineer of choice to do that, you know, I don't know, maybe, we'll kind of see how that plays out, but.
Isn't part of the question scale, right? If this is 1 project or 3 or 2 or
Right.
how it pencils out, just in terms of what
But
you're
the
gonna
survey
build.
piece could be robust for the whole
Yes,
thing.
right.
And if we could hire someone to go out and do that door to door, or, you know, we kinda skimmed over that in the Cherry area, and I think that should have been the more robust piece of it to some degree. Cause it gets you that buy-in, you know your take rates, you know your businesses that need it, you maybe have a little more detail on that, so, I don't know.
Maybe a lot more resource for that community organizing side that,
Yes.
you know, whoever does that, you know, that can empower somebody like Kippy to go out and do the
Right.
survey kind of thing.
Right.
Right, get people who know people on their streets, yeah.
Right.
And then in terms of mirroring this up towards infrastructure funding, we know that there'll be another 20 next year from the state, right? And so thinking about, have you thought through the timeline that if you get this, a provider, a partner identified this fall and get it going, that'll position you by next year from now to be applying for state funds?
So we've been thinking, we're trying to get that October meeting where we're really trying to pull together what do we need in our RFP, so then we can build one, but then go out yet this fall, but that would be our hope.
How do you usually go door to door in the fall?
Yeah.
Deer stand is dangerous.
We're a lot of work.
So, you know,
Well,
moving
from our-
forward, but not rushing to,
Right,
for the
right.
sake of you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I felt that other group rushed a little bit on the front end and then some things, and it was still great, and let's look at what's happening in Charity.
Sure. And we're really building that momentum, even with the BRA conversations from a business standpoint, and 72 families being like, what, this is awesome. So I feel like the momentum is building where when someone is hired to do this, people will maybe have heard of it and be willing to respond and want to participate instead of being completely blindsided by a weird phone call or a weird knock on the door. That's my hope anyways.
Well, that was a really fun march through your 4 projects. Thanks so much for that. It was fun to have everybody here to contribute. We really are, our team wants to hear about any, on the back that's going forward on here, talking about challenges and how we can be more helpful. So just one more time on that, really, is there other observations or surprises or things that you're experiencing that you want to share with us that we should know about? Things, the ways that your thinking has changed? What other just experience do you have that would be helpful for us to hear? Any surprises? Is it harder, slogger than you thought?
I thought it would be a lot harder to raise the dollars than it has been between our 2 communities. We were really, I think 2 meetings ago, we were like, oh god.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so hard. And then some communities come forward and put out dollars where we're like, that's awesome, and they really want to be in and part of it. And so I feel like, because we're not the first group to do this in Northeast Minnesota, we're lucky.
Yeah.
Because people are seeing progress in other communities and want to be part of that.
Yeah. I guess I'm really hoping this next round of projects gets some, I'll say, community participants, because I think, the ones that we have to date have really been, people in this room, which is fine. I mean, we have plenty of projects we can spend money on, but it'd be great to get a little more broader buy-in. And I think PCs can help with that too, but getting that broader community support.
So you're talking about having another kind of all-in community meeting to generate ideas for another round of projects and having a big fat invitation out there?
Well, no, because that wasn't that, people, that's kind of like go to them versus them come to us. And so I'm sending Greg information, I'm sending the hospital information, and asking them, will you share this with your staff team? And say, what are the problems you have that technology might be able to solve? And here's this super simple application. It has to kind of be, it's not to start your business, it's what can you be doing in the community to change something? And that, for us, will be a very different approach. And so it's more personal outreach than.
Will that be on your website?
Yeah, it is.
It is there now?
Yep. Yeah, you can see the 4 projects that are already funded, and then I have to get the document to download on there. It's not there yet, but it's very simple. And then it says how to apply. You just email it to Sherry, or walk in and drop off hard copy, whatever works for people.
I was just thinking, we have like the volunteer, community volunteer of the year, where the El Hodnik Award that goes on in October, and usually there's a good attendance because we feed folks. And, so I was thinking, a table, with some kind of a promotional board would be a way to get through to a segment there, particularly if they could take something away or sign something in the course of that. And there are probably other community meetings and such, like your open house that's going on very quickly at the school and things like that. I can see those pre-arranged.
Yeah, the places where people already are.
Whereas they wouldn't turn out in massive numbers for.
And we extended, because we were, we arbitrarily made a deadline, and right now it's September 27th, but our group is like, it's okay if it's the end of October. We're not, so once we get that communication out, then we'll probably decide on what really is the deadline.
Sure.
Let's do the house again.
Thursday.
6, I think it said. I just read it in the shopper. It was 4 to 6. Yeah.
Sherry, if we can use some flyers, could you?
Yeah, I can.
There.
Bring them there.
So Doug and Ed, from your perspectives, are you noticing any other community-wide impacts? We've got is there a buzz? Is it
Don't I wish?
Is there any other observations from your perch?
From my perch, it's just citizens coming out frustrated with the services that they're getting. They don't often channel that into raising their hands to volunteer for a community effort, and again, just simple educational things on what is broadband. The providers are less than helpful in terms of making that clear to people and things. And yeah, I'd say it's more of a frustration that there isn't a more groundswell of a interest in it.
And people don't seem to be that aware that there is a group working on this that much.
Well, I don't know, it's a small town. I have a feeling through the grapevine, most people, or a lot of people could identify somebody they know who's working on it one way or another. Yeah, I don't know, Brexy, do you have any sense amongst the business community? I think.
I think I was in a group and I was talking about property values and that sort of thing, and somebody there said, and I said, getting this broadband through will help that. And they go, we got high-speed internet, we don't, but they're not users of a lot of speed, you know, they probably play a game on their computer.
Yeah.
Where I'm talking home businesses and companies like ours, so I just don't think, there's a bunch of people that just don't understand the importance.
Yeah, and if you have it, you don't think anyone else doesn't.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm unclear of how to better educate sort of what the appetites of people and so on, other than on a sort of business by business or person by person basis. Right. But Whitney, yeah.
No, I was thinking that too, yeah, how do you?
I mean, short of
You can
flying
do
a blimp
broadband
over
101 and have 5 people show up, you know, but that, like, what is, I don't know.
I've attended 2 city council meetings in the past month to try to work on. I think we've had good conversations, particularly with Biwabik one. We've had fairly extended conversation about it. It was a fairly large crowd too, so we there are a few ways.
Yeah, that's helping. Going to those meetings to talk about feasibility study is helping.
So that it's not this.
Yeah,
What
I'm
it's
not
all
just up
over
there saying,
here,
hey,
it's
give me
this,
$1,000.
well, here's a person that's working on it
People.
that can talk about it.
Yeah.
And maybe we
To the
need
extent that we
a
could do that. If
brats, beans, bands, and broadband. You know, feed them and they will come,
This
right?
is true.
This
is true.
You know, everyone has their own time when they're open to that message, you know, and a lot of times my kids came from the cities and they had to leave because
Couldn't hand in their homework.
couldn't do their homework, or their son-in-law, you know, can't work, he says he can't work from when they come to the East Range, or, you know, so I think that's when people begin to realize that there's an issue, or my doctor wants me to hook up to this machine, but it won't connect, you know, things like that. So I think it really varies from place to place, and for some people, a relatively slow DSL connection, that's all they know. They've never had a real broadband connection. They don't know what they're missing. You know, it's I say those slower speeds are like gruel. You know, if you're hungry, you know, that gruel tastes pretty good, you know, but once you've had something else, you would never want to eat the gruel again. And I think that's a part of the case as well for folks. They just don't really understand the differences between somebody who's got a great internet connection and houses that don't, until they run up to somebody who, so I can't do what I'd like. Well, when your auditors show up and say, well, sorry, your internet connection at your financial institution is not good enough for us to do, you know, scan documents and upload documents or do those kind of things. So, but I think one of the important things is to have an educated leadership group that can, when somebody says, well, it's all going satellite, you can have some decent, you know, discussion about why that may not be so, or what's going on when somebody says, well, no one else can come in here besides Frontier, and you can start to change that topic as well. So having a group of folks that really know what they're talking about with some credibility is important. And then just finding those, you know, there could be 20 people in the East Range area for that broadband is their most important issue. And how do you find those people and get them on your team and utilize their energy, their enlightened self-interest? They're gonna work for this for community benefit because they're halfway down the road and, you know, they want everyone else to have it so they can have it too. And that's a big, finding those people that are really ready to help make that happen is
Like the Peters, you know, let's get, there must be more of them.
I wish we could clone him.
Yeah. Well, we laugh, even, you know, we laugh in the Central project in Cherry Township, there's a guy named Kippy who
Knocked on a lot of doors.
knocked on 100 doors himself, you know, to get people to do the surveys, and has attended every meeting and listened and learned, and now he's just a heck of a broadband advocate that, you know, I suspect he has high demand because he's always repairing old stuff, you know, motorcycles and cars, and, you know, that's a gold mine if you're online looking for that kind of stuff, so.
So find your kippy.
Find your kippy, that's right.
We're on the search.
Do we wanna say anything about the, ICF application? Is there anything to be said about that up here on range? Are you thinking
Well, I
about
would,
that
I would
still, or-
love to start pushing the communities more to be looking at that model and, you know, I don't.
So, I did wanna just say again, I'm sure most people are aware, but our team here has been pretty flat out planning for our, conference this fall. Some of you've been in the past. It's shocking but true, this is our 15th annual conference that we're trying to make it special and do some extra fun stuff. One of the things that's happening is, pardon me, the co-founder of the Intelligent Community Forum, which is a model that we've used with your community here, the ICF Forum, pardon me, is coming to the conference in Canada. And he'll be there on that first day of the meeting, which is the 10th, right? Is it the first day? The 8th. He's gonna be doing a special kind of workshop about the Intelligent Community Forum, and we're really encouraging people to come and meet him personally and hear more about that. So I wanna make sure everybody had those dates on their calendar, the 8th to the 10th in Nisswa at Grandview Lodge. And John Young will be there, and there's a lot of other fun stuff happening at the conference there, so you're all
got an
super.
email for that.
Yeah, I just sent out one.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you can't make that 8th through the 10th time frame, we do have a special registration type. So if you just want to come and listen to John and learn about how your community can apply for the Intelligent Community competition, that would be like the first 3 sessions on the 8th. And it's only $35.
Well, was there going to be a gathering of mayors or? What was
That's what Mary's talking
Okay.
about. It's kind of morphed into that, Whitney,
Oh,
that
okay.
we broadened it. You don't have to be a mayor to come.
Yeah.
You can be a town board member,
That's right. Yeah.
or anyone, a librarian. And so it's and we talked about the intelligent community framework at some of our early meetings, where it's on a base of broadband, how do you address workforce and digital inclusion, sustainability, marketing, and innovation. It's really an economic development framework that sees broadband as an essential foundation for competitive economic environment.
And what they bring is it's a chance to benchmark your community against other communities. So, part of this whole effort is to get people's attention. Why does this matter? Why us? Why now? And in my experience, one of the most effective ways to get somebody's attention, if you say, well, those guys up the range got this figured out, or they're doing it, or, you know, you can compare yourself to others, and it does give you a set of metrics. And then some other resources about how to move on any of those. You know, if it's digital equity that you're most concerned about, or innovation, or the infrastructure itself, there's ways to think about moving your community forward in a larger global context. So that's why we found a really effective model, and are excited. Well, Alyssa and Whitney came, and we went out to attend a global summit and met communities from all over the world that are using this model really effectively, from very small places to really big places. And so we just are excited about the opportunity to talk more about it at this year's conference. You guys have any other feedback for the Blandin team? We're here now. Whitney, questions? Any other thing we should be aware of, hear from you about?
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
that was really helpful to get the broader perspective.
Good. Thank you.
Maybe so.
Keep up the good work, you guys have got some great stuff underway, and it's exciting to think about around true, and I like what I've heard about your approach to really try to, dig deeply into some new partners that might have some ideas, so I applaud you for that.
So don't forget to stop for lunch at the Hive. Just plugging my local business, yeah.
Alright.
Not mine, but I mean.
That's where we're headed.
Good. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.